Hey guys, welcome to another video from All Wheel Drive. And as you can see, it's on the motorcycle front. Let me start out by saying, for those of you who aren't really into motorcycling, don't fret, don't opt out, don't think that it's not gonna be cars. This is motorcycle riding season. I'm an avid motorcycle rider. A lot of you are riders of bikes and like cars. So I wanted to focus on bikes because this is the time that bikes are really prominent on the roadway. Now, I did a sort of a prelude to this a while back, just to let you know that I got the bike. And one of the big key elements about this bike that I wanted to point out is how it compared to my GS. I had a 2014 water-cooled BMW GS 1200, and that was a phenomenal bike. I actually took my motorcycle riding test on that bike as opposed to my CBR, my Tuono, or whatever else I had at that time, because that bike was just so easy to manage and to handle. The agility, the lock on these bikes is so much better than what you'll get on any other bike, which I'll talk about a little bit as well. But that bike was just such a great bike that I was able to feel confident taking the test on it at the DMV. I just went there every weekend on a Sunday and rode that course until I felt confident about it. Then when it came time to take the test, I just showed up, told myself, you've passed this 20 times, just do it. And I did that. And so if you're a rider that sometimes feels a little not so confident about your riding, the best advice I can give you, and that you'll probably get from anybody else that rides, practice, and then do some more practicing. It's real easy to just get on a bike and ride because the basic mechanics of it allow you to do it without having to feel like you got to go through a training course. You can get on, you can let out the clutch, you can get the bike moving, you can go into a corner, you can do the basics. But when it comes time to do U-turns, one of the biggest challenges for most riders, you need to have the confidence in knowing that the bike can handle whatever you're about to ask of it, but you need to be confident that you can handle what you're gonna get out of the bike when you ask the bike to do that. So I would say just keep practicing everything. Go to isolated places and just ride around. Practice turning. Practice leaning, low speed lean, which will improve your high speed lean. You got to take baby steps, but you've got to continue to practice. Okay, enough of the PSA. I want to get into this bike and why I picked this up instead of another GS. Reason number one, it was cheap. This is a 2014. I got this bike for about $8,000 from someone I knew who also had another BMW. He had an R9T, and he was looking to change his riding. So he was done with this bike. He'd done a lot of riding on this bike. And I wanted another bike like this, but I wasn't ready to fork out the kind of money to get a new GS or a new Tiger. I just wanted to get something that would allow me to get back into the swing of riding a bike like this. As you can see, these bikes are not small. They're very big. And I wanted to be able to ride that bike with the confidence that I need to be able to handle any situation. So I bought this bike, and it didn't need anything. Everything is pretty much up to par on it. It runs great. It's been well maintained. So I had the confidence to buy it and not feel like, this might or might not let me down in any given situation. It could, I don't know. But from what I can tell, just from my assessment and my knowledge of motorcycles and riding, everybody's riding today, I can tell how a bike is performing or what problems are happening. Like when I was riding my RC. So on this bike, that was not the case. I didn't find any issues that I felt like were of concern, that I felt like I needed to walk away. I have a friend who told me in a joking way, oh, you bought a Tiger Exploder. Apparently there are motors that have exploded. But again, this goes back to, do you do the maintenance? A lot of people think a bike's gonna run forever, you don't have to do anything to it. That was pretty much true in the 70s and 80s. They built those bikes to go, through an apocalypse. Like you could find a 1981 Suzuki GS 750, and most likely it's gonna start and run. Will it ride well? I don't know, I doubt it, but for the most part it will. These bikes have way more going on from a technology standpoint. They're using synthetic oils and whatnot. The mechanics about them are a little bit more sophisticated. So there's a lot more to keep up with. The key to that is just keeping up with it, doing it, not being lazy about it. So again, that gave me the confidence about this bike because I knew what I knew, and I knew the guy as well, so that helped. All right, getting into this bike, the things that I absolutely love about this bike, aside from the looks, I think it looks really, really good. Okay, so the styling, one thing. The feel of the functionality. So when I say that, I mean the way you sit on the bike, the way it envelops you, the confidence you feel about how you'll ride the bike. Those are the things that give you that functionality, that help you understand its functionality. This thing rides up pretty high. It's got a really good center of gravity, and it allows you to sit in a position that you're completely in control. You have high visibility. For the most part, you can see over and around things a lot better. Wide bars, wide mirrors, all those things help you just be that much more prepared for your ride. The dual purpose nature of it. If you look at this bike, it's got knobbies on the back right now. This is not what I would normally have on it because I don't do a lot of off-roading, but I think the appeal of this is that you can if you want to. It just gives you the opportunity to take the bike wherever you may want to go. If you see a road that's a lot less travel, that may not be a road that you have to avoid. It gives you the chance to see something you haven't seen. Passenger room, big wide rear seat. So this is pretty ideal for someone that's going to ride with you for a long period of time. Also the settings for where the pegs are, wide enough, high enough that it's comfortable so that you don't get fatigue in your legs and in your knees. I think I mentioned on the last video I did on this, I bought this off of Amazon, and it actually had this color match to it that's close to the bike's color. It's not perfect, but if you look at it just at a glance, it flows nicely. It completes the look of the bike. It has really good storage. I can get a full-size helmet in there. Right now, I've got everything that I'm not using in there. Jacket, camera equipment, some other stuff. So it's a good addition to a bike like this. And have a little bit of technology. I think I mentioned in the previous video, you can change your engine modes. You can do some engine mode type stuff, ABS, traction control. You can control all those things. I think I went through some of these features down here, which I believe was an add-on by the previous owner, but it's just the volts. Basically, it allows you to add power items, 12-volt power items to the bike for charging or whatnot. Here's where a heated seat would have gone if you would have opted for that feature. If you look here, I've got the braces that the side cases go on, and I do have these side cases. I'm not a side case kind of guy. I'm not going to ride for side case distance, so it's not something that I typically like to ride with. I like to split lanes, and that kind of compromises my confidence to go through cars sometimes, and I don't want to hit anybody's car. The weird thing about the Triumph was Triumph featured this little, I don't know if you can see this, but it's a like a little cylinder. Whoops. When you put the cases on, the cases will hit against this, and it levels out between them. So any little minute variances in the movement of the cases, this absorbs it and takes a little bit of the rattle out. It's peculiar, but okay, whatever, Triumph. The other thing I really like about these bikes, particularly the BMW and this bike, is the single-sided swing arm. Makes getting to the rear wheel a breeze. There's no chain adjustment. I love the shaft drive on this. It's just one less thing that I have to worry about maintaining or adjusting or dealing with at any given time. And maybe that's a little lazy. Maybe that's just convenience. These things typically don't require maintenance. In the recommended service manual for this, it's not going to say you need to do it that often. So for me, it's not going to be something I need to worry about very much. I will go out on a limb here, and this is probably going to upset some of my really, really loyal, and I love you if you are, BMW fans, because I'm a huge BMW fan. I've had a lot of them. Motorcycles, I think I've had 4 or 5. But I'm gonna say this, and I know it's gonna be with a little bit of controversy, but comparing this 14 model Triumph to my 14 model GS that I had, I like this a lot better. And the reason why, the primary reason why, I feel like the engine in this bike is so much more capable. What I mean by that is, on the BMW, when you got it on the freeway, it's not a top end bike. So it would start to vibrate a lot on the freeway, 85 plus. Now you're not gonna be going 95, 100 most times. You shouldn't, but you might, depending on where you are. But I think 80 miles per hour is a pretty average speed nowadays if you're on the freeway. And if you're on a motorcycle, you tend to want to be either behind a lot of traffic or in front of it. So you're gonna want to move about the freeway a lot more freely and a lot quicker. And on the GS, I just felt like I found myself trying to compensate for all the buzzing. But that was the 14. Compared to the 14 GS, this has a better range of power delivery and a smoother transmission, okay? That is what I like the most about it. I also like that the gauge cluster setup is a little more clear to read. As I mentioned in the first video, the gauge setup on my BMW, there was a very, very tiny tachometer, very tiny. The speedometer wasn't that much bigger. It had a digital screen for all other information, but I just felt like, and I think you could turn the speedometer on. I don't remember. I don't remember it having that. So it was really down to a speedometer that might have been this size. And honestly, in 05, Suzuki was building the GSX-R with a digital speedometer. So I don't really understand why they did that. But I feel like this is just so much more intuitive. And it just makes it easy if you're gonna ride something like this to be able to look down and go, what's my temp? What's my trip? How much fuel do I have? I can't go on enough about how much I like these features on bikes. Every motorcycle maker out there, please, I don't care what bike it is, there's enough real estate to put a frickin' fuel gauge in. Yeah, you can put a light in and then you can have a counter that says you've got 20 miles till empty, but sometimes you just wanna know how much is actually in the entire tank. I won't go off on that tangent, I digress. But I can see everything pretty quickly. The turn lock on these bikes is ridiculous. This thing will pull a full circle so tight, it'll blow your mind. This makes for a very easy and confident turning and maneuverability on a bike. Slow speed maneuverability especially. Yeah, so those are the basic things. One of the things I did do to this bike in terms of adding stuff, just for safety and security, most bikes have a very, measly, me type of horn. And that's not gonna do it when you're dealing with people that sometimes will ignore horns because they know they're driving so bad. They figure if they don't look at you and acknowledge you, then they don't have to face the fact that they can't drive. My point is, I added a better horn because I want everybody to hear me from a long way. So I definitely feel like if you're gonna have a bike and you can put a bigger horn, put a bigger horn on it because it's gonna save you a lot of pain and agony mentally and possibly physically. So I recommend that. The exhaust I have on here that came with the bike when I bought it, I didn't know what it was. It's a Delkovich. I've never heard of it, but it sounds dope. The bike has a putt sound, kind of like if it were a BMW boxer engine. When I go to downshift and decelerate, it will actually pop a bit, which I didn't expect. I don't hate it, I don't love it, I don't have to have it, but thankfully it's not annoying. I don't want to seem like I'm trying to pose on a bike like this. Like, what do I need an engine that sounds like it's about to go around the Nürburgring for? I think the handling on this and the GS, I was very impressed by both of them. I was taking this through the corners that I take the sport bikes on, and it was very impressive. I was kind of like, a well-balanced bike is just a well-balanced bike. Granted, I'm not gonna be, going through corners at 70 miles per hour on these, but you can go through confidently and have a little fun with it even, a little spirited. And that's the duality of a bike like this that's appealing. I think on a bike that's so well-rounded like this one, or the GS, or the KTM, or the Ducati, the Multistrada, is that they can just do so much. And I think the evolution of them now is to the point where you can almost be sport-like with it. Think about the XR 1000 BMW. That bike is kind of meant to be more of this kind of comfort, but more of a sport bike or S1000 single R kind of performance. bridging those two together. Not what I'm after with this kind of bike. This is a very like Escalade feel for me, or experience. I want to be able to be comfortable. I want to be able to go where I want to go. I want to have a good time, and I want to take everything in. This bike ticks all those boxes. Things that I don't like as much about this compared to the GS that I had, the suspension is not as good, okay? Just being very honest here. But from a suspension setup standpoint, I don't think it is as refined as the BMW. The BMW just feels, you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? It's plush. This ain't as plush. This is more rugged. That's pretty much the basics of this bike and why I have it. Wow. All right. So you guys got to ride with me a little bit just to see what it was like from my perspective, the things that I would do with this bike, how I like to ride this bike, and how the bike rewards me in its use. A few more things that I wanted to point out that I really like about this bike that I didn't have on my GS. One is it has the canceling turn signal. It's a 14, so it's not like technology wasn't available at that time, but that was genius. I mean, how many times have you been on your bike, if you're a rider, and you've forgotten to turn your blinker off, and someone comes up, hey man, your blinker's on, or you realize after you've ridden for 20 minutes, you're like, oh shit, I'm that guy. Nobody wants to be that guy. So I really love that about the bike. Power-wise, it has about 140 horsepower versus the 2014 GS's 125. But again, my point is the torque is where you see a lot more of the manifestation of what it delivers to you as a rider. So where the GS didn't have as much top end, it had plenty down low. And I find it a lot easier to pull a wheelie on a GS than it is on this. You know, relative to the GS, this is more top end power. So that 140, that 15 horsepower difference between the two is more evident on this bike as you rev up. So that's that freeway riding comfort that I was talking about. On the freeway, you can use a little bit more of that power higher up in the rev range, and it's not as buzzy or as annoying as the GS, because at that point the GS is kind of at the top of the rev range, so the engine's kind of like, I'm almost there. Again, I can't say enough about how much I really enjoy this bike. I really do enjoy it. And you know, coming off of that GS and getting on this, and mind you, I bought this for considerably less than I paid for my GS, but the money spent on this, because it's old, is money well spent to me, because it's in good shape. It still has enough of the technology to keep me up to date, to keep me safe, to make me feel like I've got a competent bike no matter what my situation or riding terrain is, and it doesn't feel as dated as it is. When you look at it, yeah, you notice it is an older bike, but at the same time, it's not an unattractive bike at all. I quite like the way it looks. Let me know what you think. All right, till the next time, all-wheel drive, stay safe.